Oh, hello. I didn't see you there. I'm sitting on my terrace today, and it's quite a warm, wintry day. You can't really do this in summer because of the mosquitoes. So I'm really relishing the unusual experience of drinking coffee on my balcony, right next to the escape hatch in case there's an earthquake. And today I've been indulging in another little luxury. One of the things I like to do is to street view places I've never been to. And sometimes I feel a great affinity with those places, and other times I don't. As an example, today the sort of data trail was that I was following a British Airways flight that was going from Shannon in Ireland to New York, but got delayed over the Atlantic and was circling for 90 minutes and then had to land at St. John's, Newfoundland. Don't know why, some technical problem, or to refuel because they were circling for so long. Then I started looking on Street View at what... Sorry, my concealed recorder. At what St. John is like, because I've never been there. I remember I had a friend who studied at university there and said he was persecuted for wearing a scarf, which you would think would be quite an essential garment in cold Canada. But there were clapperboard houses and there were almost no shops, and it looked like a deadly dull and cold place. And I have a sort of dread of cold. That's one reason I've come south from Scotland. I mean, most of the world is south of Scotland anyway. But I was married in the 90s to a Bangladeshi from Sylhet, a Sylheti, who now lives in Miami, actually. But I never went to Bangladesh. And I seem to recall when I looked into going there, because I did this amazing operation to get her out of Sylhet. When I looked into it, I found that you could only get 2-day visas, but now you can get 2-month visas as a tourist in Bangladesh. But anyway, now it is on Street View, and even Sylhet. So I was walking through some bazaars, virtually street walking through some bazaars in Sylhet, and really got enthusiastic about the kind of skirts that the men are wearing. It's Street View, which is taken in September being one of the hottest months in Bangladesh. They're wearing Lungi. It's called Lungi. They're also, some people call them, they're not sarongs, they're saram. Saram is what some people call them. But Lungi is what they're called, and it's a garment worn in various countries: India, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Cambodia, Sri Lanka, Burma, Brunei, Malaysia, Nepal, Singapore, Thailand, and the Horn of Africa, and the southern Arabian Peninsula. And because it gets so hot and humid in these countries, people wear it in summer, especially where trousers would just be uncomfortable, way too tight. So you sew them into a tube shape, like a skirt. This is from Wikipedia. They're mostly worn by men, especially in Bangladesh, and they're sort of worn indoors but outdoors as well. There has been a couple of places in Bangladesh which tried to ban them, public buildings and things, but there were huge demonstrations against that ban. They're very popular. And what strikes me is that they're usually plaid, they're usually sort of tartan, but with very vibrant blues and maybe pink shades of tartan. So they have a particular elegance. It's a little bit like kilts, tropical kilts in a way, although they don't have any pleating and they're much lighter fabric. Sometimes they're silk, sometimes they're cotton. And so I was just, and you knot them with a sort of maybe a double pretzel knot or a double twist knot at the top around the waistband. So I was really impressed by the colours. I mean, just mind blown actually by the the baby taxis, the rickshaws, the street markets, the bazaars. I landed in the middle of a bazaar and thought, well, it's probably just nice around here, and the rest of the city's kind of boring or irritating or something. But then I kept walking, inverted commas, through, and the whole city, oh my God, the wind is blowing my duvet off the rail here. The whole city, as far as I could see it, down to the river, was like that. It was all people on these wonderful old bicycles, painted vibrant colours, wearing these fantastic clothes, and small vendors and shops, mostly in corrugated tin. So it struck me that the kind of atmosphere I celebrate in Japan, or in other places, in London I go to Whitechapel and Brick Lane, and places which are Bangladeshi flavoured, but that's a very half-hearted, watered-down version of this kind of environment and these kind of clothes and fabrics. And it strikes me, isn't it interesting that your aesthetic might be based on a place you'd never been to? It must be a very common situation, because most people in the world, let's say you're dressed in a New York baseball cap, but you actually live in Mumbai, where your sort of ideal, your dress sense comes from a place you might never have been to, very possibly have never been to. So it's the same with me, and it takes a while to really identify where that place is, and to identify what are the elements that you really like about it. I like I won't say effeminacy, because I think the lungi is worn in quite a masculine way. People often clasping their testes through it, and if you look at, there are some fashion shows, lungi fashion shows on YouTube, and people are hoisting up the skirt in quite an aggressive way, and the audience is whooping and applauding, and so it's done with almost a hoodlum swagger. And there's this hit song called Lungi Dance, which I recommend you don't listen to, but which seems very much influenced by Psy, the mega hit he had in Korea a few years ago, but with kind of Bhangra rhythms. And but I'm not so interested, because you start the aesthetic when you get into official fashion shows. I mean, one of the fashion shows for lungi I saw on YouTube, there's guys with cameras, expensive cameras dangling off them, or airport trolley bags, and so obviously the idea is that the lungi can be worn with pride in an international and even slightly yuppie setting. But the environment that really interests me is this Bangladeshi street environment, where people are wearing them not in this self-conscious way, which is both proud and chippy, shoulder chippy to me, because you're simultaneously ashamed of your local fashions and styles and also trying to assert them. But the pride is and the shame are simply flip sides of each other. They're two sides of the same coin. But I was much more interested in the bicycle riders and the street traders wearing them in much less self-conscious fashion. And Bangladesh is not a big tourist destination. It's not a big global center, especially Sylhet. There's one cafe in Dhaka, I think, which was attacked by fundamentalists because it was the watering hole for a cosmopolitan global elite, perceived as such. In Sylhet, you don't have that kind of place. You have very, very few tourists. I didn't see any non-Bangladeshi people on the streets. And I also didn't see that sort of glittery, shiny skyscraper CBD, Central Business District, that you might see in Western cities or rapidly developing even Indian cities. There'd be a shiny kind of ugly center. Perhaps there is one in Sylhet, but it seems like mostly a really big market town for the surrounding rural areas with fantastic produce, very tasty looking food, and an architecture which was at once debased, cheap, humble materials like corrugated iron, but also very endearing and rickety and charmingly run down. Whether it keeps the rain off is another matter, and of course the rains and flooding are a big issue in Bangladesh and will be increasingly as climate change takes hold. I mentioned the other day this name, Mohammed, I think his name is, who's one of the artists in the Venice Biennale this year. Bangladesh in that sense, sort of getting onto the map in the contemporary art world. But to me, the exciting thing is just how the street is organized, and especially these colors that people have, the colors they're wearing, the extraordinary vibrancy. And yeah, just thinking, there's a whole aesthetic I have of, it sounds awful, but it's a sort of aesthetic of poverty, which is nevertheless a kind of happiness. I think all the studies into happiness have shown that you don't get much happier once your basic income reaches about $15,000 US a year. That's the amount of money you need to live with the basic necessities, and beyond that, increasing amounts of money don't do very much for you. So I'm also very much anti-cars, and what was wonderful about the street scenes in Bangladesh is that people can't afford cars. Of course, if they could afford cars, they would run out and get them immediately, and the streets would be clogged up, polluted, and degraded, enormously degraded. There is this fantastic street life of pedestrians and bicycles, not even motorbikes, but bicycles, people with sort of baby taxi. I mean, there are baby taxi motorbikes, but it's mostly people-powered, and that's, of course, very good. It keeps your body slim, keeps you attractive looking and fit, healthy. So I think, it's a very cunning, crafty sidestep of all the problems we have of the West with our weight and our lack of exercise. But also that there's this chromophobia, which is very noticeable in the West. A fear of color, a fear of people wearing colors, this awful dependence on jeans, which you do see jeans in Sylhet, but actually at least half the men in these bazaars were wearing these Lungi cottons, fabrics. And I always like the kind of looseness, the looseness of leg-related apparel. You feel very free. I'm not going to give you too much information about whether I wear underwear in summer, but I think it's safe to assume that I don't. I love to feel free in my clothes, especially the lower half of them. And jeans are an abomination for me because they're this thick, stiff fabric which sits right next to your skin and rubs against it all the time. Not only that, but has little bits of metal stuck in it, all these studs and stitched pockets which are all too tight. And so absolutely not healthy as far as I can see. And putting a belt on that, through the belt tabs, all that stuff is really awful. Okay, I can see the point of people adopting workwear for a while, but I don't see the point of adopting it forever. And I think as the West declines in its influence, certainly these silly cowboy trousers are going to decline and fade away. Jeans are going to fade. And let's hope we're all wearing lungi.
Open University.